bringing you key insights, tips, and advice from the brightest minds in the Canadian franchise industry. This is the Franchise Canada Chats podcast. Welcome to the Franchise Canada Chats podcast, where we take you into the world of franchising. Our interviews are with franchisees, franchisors, and industry leaders who give on-the-pulse expert advice and share their franchising insights and experiences. I'm your host, Lauren. This is Season 3, Episode 1. In this episode, I talked to CEO Brian Bazely and franchisee Rahul Kumar of Driverseat, a transportation franchise that offers twofold services as a chauffeur and shuttle provider. Brian and his brother Luke Bazely co-founded Driverseat in 2012 with the goal of doing something good for the community. Driverseat is in over 400 communities in Alberta, Manitoba, and Ontario, and has expanded into the United States. Rahul owns a location in Calgary, which he operates alongside his wife, and says he was drawn to Driverseat because of their values as a socially responsible franchise. Here, Brian shares how he and his brothers support their many franchisees, the impact COVID-19 had on business, key learnings from this challenging year, and more. Rahul shares his goals for his Driverseat franchise, his favorite thing about running his own business, including a lot of emotions and learning opportunities, and introduces his new grocery shop and drop program that was created to support seniors during the pandemic, among much more. Enjoy the episode. So maybe to get started, we can just kind of get a little bit of background information from you guys and get to know you a bit better. So Brian, can you tell us a bit about the Driverseat concept and what sets it apart?
Sure, yeah. So Driverseat from a commerce perspective, it's a little bit different because we're not in the food industry, we're in the service industry, and our services are twofold services. We chauffeur people. So we drive people around in their vehicles for them. And then the second service is we provide shuttle services, which are mid-sized commercial vans, where we provide a vehicle and a chauffeur to drive groups of people around to different events. So the service itself is tied to that. The interesting thing about the concept, though, is and what we developed as a business model as a result is we start out as a work from home model, and so it's a very low cost startup. And you start working from home, hiring chauffeurs, and starting out with a couple of vehicles, and then you build onto those vehicles as you land contracts in order to use them. So it's just unique in the manner that it's a low cost model, but it's very, very scalable because you scale up the capital as you build your business.
Okay, and can you touch a little bit more on how Driverseat got its start?
Yeah, we got our start. So my brother Luke and I co-founded it in 2012, and we got our start in the very opposite way of the way most businesses got their start. We decided in 2010 to start a franchise-based business because we love the idea of working with bright entrepreneurs and guiding a path for them to build a strong, sustainable business. And so we decided we wanted to do that. We decided we wanted something that was going to be good for the community, something that was not a Me Too business, and we came up with a number of other governance factors around it. And then we started searching for an industry and a business that we could do that would fit what we were passionate about, which was franchisees. And through that, discovered that there was a great need to provide transportation for the elderly, the vulnerable sector, children that perhaps couldn't ride in a taxi or nowadays an Uber. Or municipal transit, and helping out companies with transportation and things like this. So we saw a need for that, and then this kind of checked all the boxes, so to speak, and Driverseat was born.
Okay, great. Rahul, can you touch a bit on what you were doing before you became a Driverseat franchisee, and what drew you to franchising and Driverseat?
Well, oh my goodness, Rahul, how far back can you go? Because you got some great stories.
Just a little bit about myself. I migrated to Canada in 2011, and I was working with the Enterprise Rent-A-Car. That's where I started my career with. And then from Enterprise, I moved to Budget Car Rental. So always been into the transportation business and helping people, customer service, that kind of stuff. What drew me to Driverseat is the biggest portion was socially responsible aspect of the thing, making sure that people get home. Having lost my own grandfather to a drunk driver, that kind of resonated with me, that I need to do something within this industry. And driver seat is coming in there with being like the whole socially responsible aspect of things, and making sure our roads are safe, and we're not having um, drunk driver driving on the road and killing people out. So that was one. Really like Brian and Luke, their whole idea about where they wanted to take the company to. So that's kind of what drew me to driver's seat. And it has always been our dream, as like as a new immigrant to any country. I think the biggest dream is to owning your own business. And in 9 years, I think Shelly and I, we saved up enough money. We've done enough things that we thought we were ready to take on the business, and we kind of wanted a business that had some, we had some guidance to it. And there's the franchisee, there is always a set model. We knew that it can work, and we knew it can succeed. So that's where the driver's seat kind of checks in all the boxes, and we decided to go with the driver's seat.
Okay, and you say you operate the franchise with your wife, is that correct? Or
Yes.
okay, and so Brian, what would some of the other benefits of franchising with driver's seat be?
Well, there's benefits to franchising as a whole, and we certainly, fit the bill with a number of those things. For the franchise model itself is just so amazing. So you've got things like shared resources, of course. The amount of technology we can purchase because we're all, contributing to the build of that piece of it is pretty substantial. And of course, the proven recipe. And then I think the couple of lesser known parts of franchising, if somebody hasn't been a franchisee before, the first is, as a business owner, there's a lot of challenges, and you can't be an expert in every single thing, in every single aspect. So some people are strong from a numbers perspective or accounting, and some people are strong in sales or marketing or business development or human resources. And so what the franchise does is help round that out, because it provides resources and coaching around some of these other areas. And then the second piece and part that we're most excited about every single day is really this idea that franchisees learn from one another, they share with one another, and this is a really, really bright group of individuals who know what they're doing. And so ultimately, the old essence of rising tides raise all ships certainly stands strong with respect to franchising, because as Rahul continues to do incredible things in Calgary, others will look at that and say, okay, well, now I want to adopt some of those ideas, some of those concepts, and do that. And I think the part, I guess, that's perhaps unique about the driver's seat model is, we're seen as a consumer brand. We're seen as a brand where we might be shuttling people to an airport or to weddings, or we might be providing designated drivers, as Rahul talked about, with some of these consumer pieces. And that certainly is true. We do a lot of that. But there's a little bit of a secret sauce here, which is tied to all of the commercial type of work that we do. And we continue to chase and land larger commercial type of contracts. And that from a franchise perspective is really healthy, because the franchisee then gets things like recurring revenue. There's an opportunity for kind of simplifying the business, because you've got pre-scheduled routes and runs every day. And so those are some of the really exciting things that we continue to chase with all of our franchise partners. And the recent one was a multi-million-dollar contract that one of our smallest locations in Ontario landed, providing municipal transit and county transit up in Grey Bruce. And so this is a very sizable contract, and that's where there's a great opportunity for that franchise owner to build a larger and more sustainable business for themselves and their family. That's great.
And so Rahul, what has your experience as a driver's seat franchisee been like so far?
Oh, it's been it's emotional. It's been great. There's lots ups and downs in business. A lot of things that we didn't think that, I needed this, and a lot of learning for sure. It's funny that you asked me that question. I was just thinking about it. It's been exactly 1 year that we opened. We did a grand opening last year, August 19, and here we are today, August 19 today. And
we're together again.
We're together again. Yes. And I remember Brian had come down from Ontario to be a part of our grand opening, and it was great. You know, a lot of learning, a lot of things that, you know, Brian, I every time there was a problem, I just pick up the phone and just shoot a message to Brian. I need help with this, and I need help to create this quote and all that stuff. And we created some great quotes, and we got some good business, but the COVID had taken some of that business away, obviously. But so far, it's a great learning experience. It's great knowing how the franchisee system work, and what help franchisor can provide you in running your business. So it's been great.
Okay, yeah, and touching on
maybe I can just add too. I think, you know, but part of, you know, you've asked about the experience that Rahul has as a franchisee, but I think there's another side of the experience which is, you know, how has Driverseat changed since Rahul joined? Because this is almost this culture that we've cultivated, and it morphs and creates its new levels of energy and new shapes based on the franchisees that are here. And Rahul, as you can already tell by the tone, is, you know, a very progressive person, and he's gone through some pretty significant, you know, major life hurdles. Yeah, I mean, just immigrating, you know, over starting fresh in a new country, just that on its own is a, you know, big undertaking. And so Rahul brings to Driverseat as much as Driverseat, you know, brings or contributes back to Rahul. I think, you know, he's well respected. Rahul is part of our franchise advisory council, and so we meet monthly and talk about the direction of the business and talk about strategies and ideas and concepts and how to make everything more profitable than it already is. And so, you know, it's really, you know, again, our passion is really about franchisees and you know, what can we do to build a sustainable and strong model, and Rahul contributes to that in various different levels.
Yep. Well, I'm talking about the life events, and Brian, I remember I had a baby girl the same time, you know, we were buying this franchisee. I remember going to the franchisee NFT training, and Shelly's super pregnant. She's like at month 9. And as soon as we came back, she delivered a baby, and then we started this new business. It's like never afraid of taking any challenge.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear how, you know, how franchisees are actually like impacting systems for the better, because that's great. So Brian, can you maybe touch a bit more on the type of support? I know, so obviously COVID-19 has really impacted and changed how we've operated, everyone. But maybe before that happened, what was kind of the support system looking like for Driverseat?
Yeah, we really look at ourselves as business coaches, and so our support is a multifaceted support piece. It's tied to when a franchise owner needs assistance. There's a direct communication link to a support team here at the office, and I'm personally copied on every one of those chats, and so I can, you know, monitor response time and things like that. Then there's outgoing support where we monitor marketing activities and revenue numbers and things like that. And so then there's a gentle reach out or tap on the shoulder when, you know, there's for a franchise owner to do something a little bit differently to, you know, drive additional interest in their brand. And then there's ongoing, you know, monthly webinars and training. We built a new Driverseat University support module. We're just about to launch a new intranet, which Rahul will be part of the initial group seeing that tomorrow at the FAC meeting. And so the list goes on. And you know, our goal is to strike that great balance of providing lots and lots of support, but not really being kind of in the franchise owner's, you know, face all the time. No one really wants to be self-employed in order to take orders every day. That's not really what the dream is all about. But when somebody needs assistance, that's what we want to be there for them. So we strike this interesting balance, and you know, the support pre-COVID was strong, and we had very good feedback and ratings back from our franchise owners about it. But we learned a lot through COVID about support, and I think upped our approach from an emotional perspective and trying to connect with what were some of the more unique challenges and portions around it. So I know we'll have probably an opportunity to chat about COVID, but we did spend a lot of time pre-COVID building support packages and modules and making sure that we were very responsive on a day-to-day piece, but without really kind of making anyone feel that they were reporting into somebody, right? Because that really wasn't our business model.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And Rahul, how, prior to obviously this giant challenge that you've just faced, what were some of in your first year, do you have any examples of some of the kinds of challenges that you faced, and maybe some other franchisees would expect to experience similar things as they're starting out?
Well, it's all been good challenges, like they're all been, good problems to have, I should say. So, for example, one of those inquiries that came in, somebody wants to drive. There is a group of 30 people. We negotiated from here to Vancouver and back, and wanted to stay in the campground. And they want us to drive the RVs, all the 6 of them. So it kind of was very challenging, like how we're going to find those 6 people that are going to be able to continue to stay in a campground in a tent, or find a room close by, get a taxi. So a lot of thought, a lot of things that went into it. So I'm going to say these were all like the good challenges, good problems to have. Right now, for example, some of the things that we're going through is managing the bylaws in the city, and Luke and I and Brian are working through that, some of those challenges, and we're learning a lot more other services that we can offer through the city versus we didn't know about those services, for example.
Okay.
Right. So it's been all the challenges, all the problems are great. Their learning curve, and now I'm learning to do the whole accounting side of things, and managing the business. It's like you got to keep an eye out on everything that goes around the business, like minor things, from hiring to firing, and it's been completely different.
Okay, great.
And
then
I think I was just going to say too, I think the challenges, I think what we thought were challenges, anybody in business, I think what we thought were challenges on March the 13th of 2020 became very different challenges on March the 14th of 2020, as this all took root and started doing everything it did, and so I think again, just to speak to Rahul and all that he's done, his resilience and his desire just to push forward, knowing that that's exactly what he has to do, it's really commendable, and it's exactly what any business owner, but specifically any franchise owner, has to have. You're gonna hit some hurdles, and again, what we thought might have been bigger hurdles, in the past, just don't seem like big hurdles today, given what we've all gone through.
Yeah, I think we've all learned that we are a lot more resourceful than we thought we could be. When you have to be, you have to be, right?
Exactly right. You're exactly right.
Yeah, no, we came up with the whole, Calgary came up with the grocery shop and drop program. After everything went, and a lot of other people that we knew in the industry were running away and locking themselves out in their homes, and just they weren't thinking outside the box. And that's when we came in and we kind of piloted this program. Then seems like everybody adopted it, isn't it, Brian? Like the whole franchisee system kind of adopted it, took the cues from us, and ran with it. And became more successful than we were.
Hey, listen, you let them charge, and Lauren, that's a great example. I mean, you get talking about challenges, of course. The term pivot became a little bit overused over time, but every business had to redefine what they were doing and how they're going to generate revenue. And we created a very strong 4-tier strategy that we launched on March the 14th, and we used it all the way through, and continue to use portions of it even today. But one of those was to find other revenue streams, of course. And Rahul, we did a number of different things at different times, of course. But Rahul really led the charge with a desire to go out and send chauffeurs to shop for families, and one chauffeur could shop for 10 families and fill up a van full of groceries. And so we made some modifications to the mobile app, to kind of accommodate some of this and the payment processing and things like that. And then chauffeurs would go out and shop. And if you think about the beauty of this, there's a revenue opportunity with some pretty good margin, but how helpful is that to families? I mean, it's just such a wonderful thing when a family can stay home and not have to worry about leaving their house. But in addition to that, for every chauffeur that was out there, that's 10 less people that were on the road, 10 less people at the grocery stores. So the grocery stores were less crowded as a result. And so, there was really a lot of magic behind the actual program itself. And Rahul led the charge with that entire program.
Oh yeah, and not to don't forget the grocery stores, how much they liked it.
Absolutely.
We were, for example, with the Sobeys and everybody else, we go in there and they're like right away, what do you need? How can we help you? Thank you for doing this, right? Because obviously they were as scared as anybody else. They don't want people to come in, but same time they want their little store to run, and they would open up another checkout line just for us. The manager would come in and make sure that everybody's okay and all the seniors and everybody's been taken care of, and to the point they were giving us free hand sanitizer for the seniors. It was great. It was and we made like so many connections in the city just by doing this, and it's a good feeling. The whole program, actually, I should tell you this a little bit, Lauren.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's the way it started. It didn't start to make money. It actually started to help people here, and all we were doing is reaching out to the seniors because they are the most vulnerable people out there. Hey, don't need to get out. Just pay us the money for how much, whatever the grocery is. The delivery is free, and which we were still doing that till this date. And then when this thing caught on, well, I remember this when first day that we tweeted about this program and we put it on social media. Within like less than 24 hours, that tweet was retweeted 33,000 times.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And my phone just like I couldn't handle it. It just blew up. And then the next thing that we know, the mayor of Calgary is thanking us and talking about us. A few days later, Jason Kenney, our premier, is thanking us and talking about us. And it was just a great feeling. And then what happened? A lot of abled people started to reach out. Hey, can you help us too? So that's when we thought, you know what? There is a real opportunity also to make money and help the chauffeurs to make some money for their families. So we decided that we're going to charge $25, I think it was, for somebody who's an abled person, and if somebody who's senior, we still do it for them for free.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It speaks too much to the social impact that you were talking about before. It must be so rewarding to be able to create something like this. As that was one of the reasons you got into this, and now you can continue to do that. And there is the opportunity to evolve businesses as you need to, and the franchisees can play a huge role in that. So that's great.
Oh, yep. No, the University of Calgary got in touch with us, and they kind of wanted to know, how can they help in, and they ended up creating their own little student volunteer grocery delivery for the seniors, and it was, and I was kind of instrumental in creating this whole thing for them too, because at the end of the day, we're helping people. That was the main goal.
I was just going to say, and I'll let you ask your question, Lauren, but I think when you start with people first, and in Rahul's case, it's talking about, hey, I started this shop and drop program to help the community and help, we had this large workforce and vehicles and the ability to maneuver that and mobilize it. And so when you start always with the concept of helping people, the revenue and the business itself just comes naturally after the fact. I mean, and we always think about that from our franchise model perspective, right? Start with people first, and if you focus on people, the rest of it just becomes very, very simple.
Agree. You know, like, and that's one of those things that I think I learned it early on with enterprise. It's like you help enough people, like you don't put the profit first. Profit automatically will follow.
And just to clarify, were you kind of deemed an essential service from the start? Like, did you have to have any shutdown, or were you just, because of the nature of the business, able to?
No, we were pretty much essential service. Sorry.
Yeah, we were essential service all the way through. And you know, the shop and drop program became kind of what we evolved to from standpoint of how we you know, moved the business forward or pivoted. But there was kind of a number of things leading up to that. So, you know, when business started slowing down, and one of our 4-tier strategies, of course, was go and chase revenue in other areas. And so when business, all the traditional business started slowing down, there was a real need to get people back from the airport. You know, everybody was unsure about how to go about doing that and how to go about doing that safely. And so we were able to utilize the fleets of vehicles and get people to the airport. Then you had challenges with people flying back into the country as the Prime Minister had asked everyone to return back. But they came back in the country, but they couldn't always get a flight interprovincially or from city to city. And so then we started doing long-term or long distance runs. We picked them up at a major airport and then run them, you know, 1 or 2 provinces away to drop them off. And that might have been because there was no flights available, or because they're you know, a bit vulnerable and need to limit the amount of time in an airplane. And so we continued to work on the side of it, and then we also did a bunch of other things linked to helping people get their car in for repair. If they're in a vulnerable state, you know, stay inside the house. We'll take your car in, get it serviced for you, bring it back, and then sanitize it before we return it to you. You can leave it in the driveway for 3 days, and then you can go ahead and use the vehicle. And then as all of that started to move, we started working with the federal government on people that were coming back into the country on chartered aircrafts who had to be quarantined in private locations for 14 days. So these were hotels that the government rented. And so we started working with the government on doing that type of service. And then there's a whole bunch of really interesting things. Like one of the really neat examples is as factories reconfigure themselves to build PPEs, and there was all of this change happening. Often that required, you know, those changes required parts. And so we were heading out and picking up parts at various different cities because they needed somebody who was going to pick it up and literally be able to hand it to the receiving place, and time was of the essence. So we continue to do that type of work. And so this whole thing changed over time, over the course of those 90 plus days. But what it evolved to really was a number of different things, but the largest one being the shop and drop program, which allowed us to go out and reduce the number of people in grocery stores and generate revenue. And Rahul and many franchisees all had decided to still offer it to free to the vulnerable sector. So there was a bit of a mixed margin model on some of the things. You made $0 or lost money. You paid a chauffeur to go do it, whereas you made some revenue off of the other ones. But it was a little bit of a give back to the community while still trying to sustain livelihood for the chauffeurs and generate some revenue from the franchise.
Great. Okay. And did you want to touch a bit more on the 4-tier program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I put together a steering group on March the 14th and we started meeting hourly, and then eventually we moved to meeting 3 times a day and eventually once a day. But we decided that we really had to focus on 4 pretty critical things, and we were consistent all the way through COVID on this approach. And the first was that we had to look for revenue opportunities in other places, but it actually wasn't the most important thing to do. The second was we had to do whatever we could to help flatten the curve. And so in some cases, it might not have been a large revenue opportunity. Maybe it was a short run with a part to help with PP supplies and things like that. But whatever we could do to help do that, it was our belief and our franchise owners' beliefs that we have to play a role just like every company must in trying to help flatten that curve. The third piece was to maintain physical and mental health. And so, of course, running a business is, it can be challenging and interesting, but you have to be mentally and physically strong in order to do that. And so you certainly have to be mentally and physically strong through COVID. So every day we advised on routines and processes to go through to kind of create regularity in your life as a franchise owner, including taking mental breaks away from the PC screen, including spending time with family, including proper eating habits, and the list goes on. So then the last piece, and probably from a business perspective, one of the most critical, but all of our franchise owners have heard me say this now 10,000 times, but I referred to COVID as the ugly gift that nobody wanted. And what I said was, look, I've never been through this before. You've never been through this before, but other people have been through lots of tragedies before, world wars and H1N1 and SARS, and the list goes on. And so we're not the first people that live on Earth that have gone through some sort of a major life crisis. And so you have to take advantage of what you can with this. And when I talk about it being a gift, it's because it forces us to stop and look at the business and not worry about the day-to-day revenue. So that was one of our tactics, but wasn't the only tactic, is the target revenue. And so we really focused on building the business and the core of the business, the foundation of the business in each market, so that we come out of COVID stronger. And that was such an important and critical piece. And that business model, or that part of the business model, became copied over and over with a number of different other franchise brands and other companies. And to do this, what we talked about was, if you're going to lose X number of dollars in revenue through COVID, then you need to have a 400% return on investment. At some point in time, you got to come out of COVID, and you just have to come out stronger with the ability to make a lot more money. And so part of it was, what are we going to do to drive, Instagram engagement, LinkedIn engagement, social engagement, just in general, because we have an opportunity now to do that. And then, of course, what happens when you do that is you just have more ability to drive business after COVID. And then one of the other things that we did was we started community discussion groups, and franchise owners would set up these, the typical Zoom meetings that we're all so used to now, but we set up Zoom meetings and invite other business owners in their community to come on and talk about some of the challenges that they're having and how they help one another. Well, of course, by doing that, they became way more connected with other business owners, and the support and the awareness and the brand awareness and the relationship, the meaningful relationship between business owners with Driverseat franchise owner became just so strong. And so that last point, I think it was probably the most critical. And as I talked to others on various web calls, webinars, and others, other companies or franchise brands, it was the one they were having the biggest challenge with, but yet it was the single largest opportunity. Is you can use all that time you used to spend trying to generate dollars and forget the generating dollars piece, right? Don't forget it entirely, but don't be just fixated on that because it's limited, and really focus on what you're going to do to come out of COVID. So as a result, we've come out of COVID in particularly strong shape. Our social awareness and the impressions that we're having, and we measure weekly, are at an all-time high. And we've sold additional franchise locations through the process. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. You would have never asked for COVID, and I would never ever want for anything that was going to impact people's health. But once it was here, it was really time to take the opportunity and say, okay, we're going to have to just spend time on other things.
And so, what does, for both of you, what does the future look like for your business with all of these changes that have taken place?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll speak to the company, and then Rahul, you can speak to kind of where you're taking your Calgary market. But we, we're on a fairly significant growth curve, and again, the reset of sorts was not something we would have wanted, but certainly something we were able to take advantage of. And so, in this next new world, because there's no real new world, but in this next new world, we've got the opportunity to play a pretty critical role in what's happening with recoveries with companies, as an example. So companies need to get employees to work. It's a big challenge right now. They have to operate in a safer environment in order to do so. And so our shuttles represent an opportunity for them to do exactly that. Then you've got a portion of the workforce that may have been able to do some of the work before that can't now. And so we're experiencing lots of companies, and these are primarily factories, Lauren, like production plants and things like that. But we're kind of experienced where there's a lot of those where they're now short on employees. And again, we can play a critical role in helping that company perform and continue, because we will pick up employees in other cities and deliver them out on a kind of a time schedule. And so we're feeling very, very optimistic about the where we're going with things, and it's not to say it won't come with some unique challenges. It will, but we just aren't going to experience the same types of challenges that let's say the restaurant industry or some of the other industries might experience. And that's in part because of the industry we're in, but it's also in part because of our approach to it. I think we're just going to move that piece ahead. So yeah, we continue to move forward. Our goal is to continue to drive revenue at each franchisee's top line revenue growth, and then to drive additional franchise sales so that we continue to open up and serve new markets. So, Rahul, I know you have big plans for as Banff gets reopened and what you're going to be doing out there. So, share that with us.
Well, one of the things that all of a sudden we have, we don't have as many factories and manufacturing plants in Calgary as you guys do up in Ontario. But the school transportation demand, we've been fielding an inquiry almost every day for people don't want to send because as the school reopened, they don't want to send their kids on right. Those big yellow buses, but they're looking to get into a small private charter kind of a transportation, what we offer. And right now we're going to be going into a big hiring spree here, because everybody kind of really liked the chauffeur aspect of things, where we go pick up like for example, there are a bunch of doctors in this one clinic, and they're all of their kids needs to be picked up from school. And our chauffeurs are going to start going to their offices, pick up their car, go to their kids' school, pick them up from school in their own cars, and drop them home, and then deliver the car back to their office, to their clinic.
Right.
And that's and also in addition to that, and Brian knows about it, there are schools who are reaching out to us and wanted to find out how can we provide them the service. Now, in that case, that's where we're working with the city bylaws and the Alberta transportation, because the school transportation, your own shuttle in Alberta, is a little bit trickier than after the Humboldt accident that happened. So we're working through that. But chauffeur service for picking up kids, this is going through the roof. Second thing is when we open up our big tourist hotspot, Banff and Lake Louise, we're planning to have a permanent shuttle from Calgary Airport to Banff. We're thinking about buying a big bus, and that bus runs every 3 or 4 hours a day on the weekends, on the weekdays, and a weekend at a different time. So that's kind of where we're going with it right now. You can buy the tickets and everything through the app.
Here's the part this is the part that's just so exciting about whenever you get talking with Rahul is. So Rahul had, and he kind of talked briefly about it earlier, but Rahul had this really amazing opportunity that we're working on. It was a travel company out of Singapore who's going to be sending guests over, and Rahul's going to have chauffeurs spend 14 or 15 days with a family of 6 or with a group of 6, literally driving them around.
Group of 30 people, 6 RVs.
Right, exactly. Yes, 6 different RVs. And so driving these folks around, and this was what a wonderful experience, because somebody gets to come to Canada and gets their own personalized chauffeur who's going to drive their camper trailer. The chauffeur was going to stay in a hotel each night while the folks lived in the camper trailer. So just a really kind of a cool experience. but also it was a very sizable agreement and contract. And so this thing, COVID hits, this thing goes by the wayside.
Oh, I don't want to talk about it. That's $85,000 that's gone.
Exactly. No, but here's the thing, Rahul. It's not gone, right? Because you've got this thing, and so it's not that people aren't going to do that; they're just not going to do it now, right?
Yeah.
And so you build on the school transport, and you build on some of the other assisted transport modes, and working with some of the public on the vulnerable sector. And as things open back up, those folks are going to continue, and that's still going to be an opportunity to provide that level of service. But now Banff opens back up, and you've got even more business coming your way again. Mm-hmm. And so such an interesting situation, because this whole idea of pivoting, if a company pivots and it's temporary, that's okay. But if you kind of morph your service a little bit, and you pick up additional things, or you force yourself to pick up additional things, and then the old stuff comes back, which of course it will, right? That becomes magic.
Yeah.
Oh, those are some really amazing developments. That's great to hear about.
Absolutely.
So what would you guys say that your biggest takeaway from the whole experience would be, your biggest learning?
You mean throughout the COVID?
Yeah, through the latest COVID challenges.
One of the things that I learned, and I always knew about it but never kind of experienced it, it's the mindset. I think having a positive mindset, irrespective of whatever you're faced through, it will get you through. It's like, we get through a winter, we get through a storm every winter. We get, like, especially in Calgary, but we're used to it because it happens every year. And imagine if something like that, a pandemic only happens 1 in 100 year, and people get through it as long as they keep that positive mindset. It's just, I think, and could you imagine if that pandemic happened every 5 years? We'll be so used to it, we'll know how to handle it. It's just because it doesn't happen normally once in 100 years, and people normally get afraid and get inside and stop doing things that they're supposed to do, and that's when they fail. And the people who just have that abundance mindset and have that mentality that it's okay, it's not a big deal, and we'll get through it as long as we take precautions and we do things the right way, and take this as a new day and new thinking, and keep thinking outside the box kind of stuff. So the biggest takeaway for me was, like, having a positive mindset makes a huge difference, irrespective of whatever the situation there is. Mm-hmm. Would you agree that?
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. I think the Winston Churchill once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think when you have an abundance mindset, then this becomes the fact that if you look at, and I'll go back now to what seems like a lifetime ago, but to the first week of April, when things were continuing to get worse and worse and worse, from a health perspective and number of cases and all of the unknown and all the fear around it. And I remember that week, as we did webinars with all the franchise owners and phone calls, I wanted everybody to get past any of the grievance stage that they might be going through at that point in time, which was, woe was me. And so anybody that might have been looking at this and saying, I'm not sure where I'm going to take this piece. And what I talked about was the fact that every crisis has a start, it has a middle, and it has an end. And the only difference with this particular crisis is we're in the middle of it, but we just can't see the end yet. But there'll be an end. It's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. And so the learning, I think, through that, because the team that I have, both at the head office level and at the franchise level, but they're just so strong. I think that the real learning comes down to the fact that every single thing that happens, you have to have a plan and strategy around it. And you might need to morph the strategy or tweak it or adjust it or modify it, but you do have to have a strategy. And if you have a strategy and then the abundance mindset that Rahul was talking about, with a strong team like that, you can get through anything. And so, I look at how we handled going through it, and there certainly were some challenges, but we just weren't hit to the same degree, across the board and we took some damage for sure, but we just weren't hit the way that many franchise companies were, or many other companies were. And we're looking all around, and I always try and put perspective on this. We're looking around and we're seeing huge companies go bankrupt. We're seeing massive companies that were doing in excess of $1 billion that didn't have the war chest or the strategy to survive this. We looked at small mom and pop shops that couldn't survive this. We looked at lots and lots that literally, we called it the couch strategy, which was they literally stopped answering emails. We saw some competitors do this, and they probably sat on the couch and watched Netflix and weren't sure where to turn. So the vehicle sat in their parking lots, and they just didn't make an attempt to do anything. There was nothing active on social. And so I think the team that we have focused on creating strategy and then tweaking or modifying or developing that strategy as we went. And I think a strategy or a plan has to be used in every single situation. It's heavily used in war. It's heavily used through the medical field. It's heavily used in business planning. It should be heavily used with family planning to understand how to manage your children and things like this. And so through a tragedy or something like that, it absolutely has to be used. So, and then the other thing I'll add is I think where I think we were able to make some really quick changes. I don't know if you've read about wartime CEO, but wartime CEO versus peacetime CEO is a really interesting concept that's tied to if you're the head of a company, how you have to act and react when things get hectic versus in regular peacetime. And I adopted that strategy, and I did so very quickly. So by March the 14th at noon, I was wartime CEO, and my tone had to change, and the speed of action had to change, and what we were demanding had to change. For the benefit of our franchise, for the benefit of our head office staff, for the benefit of our franchisees, for their families, and the list goes on. So yep, there are some struggles through it, but we also came out in relatively good shape, and I think we're now quite strong, and heading into next calendar year, we're just going to see some really big and positive things happening.
Great. And so I think this is kind of a time where we're seeing that people are definitely quite interested in franchising. Circumstances have changed in their lives, or this seems like a good time to kind of get started with something like this. What advice would you have to anybody who's considering franchising right now?
Yeah, maybe I'll start, Rahul, and then maybe you can give it from your perspective as well, if you would. But I would say today is only slightly different than what they should have been looking at back in February. As far as I'm concerned, there's really only three things a franchisee needs to consider, and they got to be meticulously focused on these three items. The first is trust. Do you trust your franchisor? Is this somebody that you can work with every day because you are literally partnering up with that group or that individual or that company? And so, is there a trust factor there? And I always talk to prospective franchisees as they come through the system and say, are you going to enjoy working with us, right? Are you going to be part of our culture and our governance? Because that's just so critical. The second piece is, do you have a franchisor that is absolutely fixated on your top line growth? Because that becomes the most critical component overall for obviously the financial health of the business, right? And the third is, can you actually forget the industry? Forget the industry. It's not important. People get so fixated on what industry. I run one of the largest. I run the largest franchise transportation firm. I run one of the larger transportation firms in Canada, and we're growing in the U.S. as well. I've never worked in transportation. This is not about the industry. You have to look at the actual role itself and say, can I see myself doing the role? What is the role of the franchise owner? And for in our case, it's a business development role. It's a customer engagement role. It's a leadership role with chauffeurs. And so if somebody that comes to us can see themselves in that role, we could teach them all the other stuff. That part is super simple. And so my advice would be, make sure that you have inherent trust in the person that you're talking with. The second piece is understand if that franchisor is fixated on your top line revenue growth, right? Not just you, both of you, but they're not going to deliver it to you. You have to go deliver it, but make sure they're fixated on it. And then the third piece is on the day-to-day, right? Can you see yourself doing this role? Because if you can see yourself doing it, you have this trust, and you know that person's got your back from a revenue perspective, it's likely a really good fit. So So it's, the franchise model is a wonderful model. I would highly advise anybody that's considering a business opportunity to jump into a franchise system. It's absolutely the best way to go. And for those that are considering a franchise, but aren't, or even a business, but aren't quite sure about it, hey, jump in. Life is short. Life is short, right? Life is short. And, we of course get the opportunity to talk to a lot of prospective franchisees, and I'm the first one to tell them, right? Look at you can't be trying to talk yourself out of this. You either need to do it or not do it. You got to go work for somebody else, or you got to be entrepreneurial and have some fun doing this. But don't second guess it. Just jump in and have some fun. Life is very short. You have the opportunity to build a large sustainable business. Of course, statistically, there's very low risk in franchise, buying a franchise or a franchise recipe as a whole. Extraordinarily low with Driverseat, because we just don't have those types of challenges. So you really don't have a lot of risk, but you have lots of upside and lots of reward. You just gotta want to work towards it, because the work itself is fun. So what do you think?
Well, I pretty much you summed it all up in there. But the number one thing is, when you're looking to starting a new business, somebody like me, you got to start from scratch. You got to, know everything. And franchising gives you that freedom, to come up with, there is a system, there is a plan in place. You can start running from day one, versus, you start setting up with your company and contacting the accountant and there is a multiple of things that goes into starting a new business. And it's easier if you really wanted to start a franchisee. Is really easy, because you have the support of the franchisor. There is a system in place already, and anything that you think could go wrong, it probably has gone wrong for the franchisor when they were starting out. So there's already, there are already things in place that the things shouldn't go wrong. So I think the franchising is the way to go for somebody who's starting out and brand new. I'm sure, Brian, you probably started out as a franchisee before you turned into a franchisor.
I did. I was a franchisee in a past life. So.
So after a while, you get the experience of how the business work and do this, and then you can go on your own. But in the beginning, I think franchisee is definitely best way to go for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything that either of you would like to add before we wrap things up?
Well, I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the same. I really appreciate the work the CFA did through COVID, did prior to COVID, and continues to do post this first phase of COVID. Thanks for allowing us the opportunity to talk and speak about Driverseat. We're obviously we're very passionate about it, and we're passionate about franchisees, and you get people like Rahul and just so many others that are just so much fun to work with. It's just a great environment for that type of scenario. So if some of the audience out there are prospective franchisees, I would say you just do yourself a favor, schedule some time, reach out to us, and chat with us. Listen, we'll be the first ones to tell you if we don't think this is right for you, or vice versa. But if you want to be part of something fun, it's just it really is an awfully fun business, and with a great group of franchise owners and a really great head office support team that works with our team. But thank you, Lauren. Appreciate that.
No problem. Thanks so much for spending this time with us, and your inspiring stories. They're great. It's good to hear good news and to hear positive developments with people's franchises right now, I will say. So it's been great to hear about. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more, visit franchisecanada.online. And if you're interested in the franchise opportunity, go to lookforafranchise.ca.